Okay, we're live.
Okay, welcome everybody. It's Wednesday, June 21st, 2023. It is on my clock 10:01 a.m. and this is the Lincoln County's regular Board of Commissioners meeting. All three commissioners are present today, so we do have a quorum. I am attending virtually, and Commissioner Hall and Commissioner Miller are in person at the Lincoln County Courthouse. Before we go into our kind of regularly scheduled agenda here, I'm going to kick this over to our Public Information Officer, Ken Lip, who's going to kind of walk us through some of the kind of new features of our website and how to interact with public comment and that sort of thing. So Ken, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. So I just wanted to show people who are watching at home, anybody who's in the room who can see the screen here, how you find the agenda for Board of Commissioners meeting, or other meetings conducted by the county government. You just scroll right down here at the home page of our website, go to agendas and minutes. You scroll down to the meeting date. And then once there, you've got a few different options. You can look at the agenda itself. You can look at the agenda packet, which has all of the documents that are associated with the meeting. And that's usually a pretty long document. Then you also got here under other, this is going to be all of the public input that has been submitted via Smartsheet and to the commissioner's email addresses or to mine. And speaking of which, if you would like to submit public comment, I'm going to come back here to the home page. Here under government, you will find Board of Commissioners. And you can see right here on this page where you can submit public comment via the public input page. And here's some instructions on a meeting. I'll just click on this so you can see what it looks like. And thank you very much, Chair. I'll hand it back over to you.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, just one thing, our cutoff time for receiving public input is 12 noon prior to the meeting date. So that's
The day prior.
the day prior.
Wanted to
Yeah,
clarify that.
thank you. I mean, that's an important piece too, just as we want to crunch everything together and make sure that it's online. So important point. And as we've been deploying the new website, I think it's been a little confusing, but we're streamlining things. So thanks for everyone that's turning in comment. That's all I have, Katie. Thank you.
All right. Yes. Thank you. PIO Lip, appreciate that. Also just wanted to say that if you miss the deadline for written public comment, you can still give public comment in person or during our virtual meeting. That is just a deadline for written public comment. So you can still show up and provide in-person public comment or online as well, which we'll have an opportunity to do later in this meeting. All right, so first up on our agenda is the adoption of our consent calendar. You might have noticed because we went to 2 meetings a month, typically our consent calendar has kind of grown here, but these are still items of a routine nature, but either commissioners or staff can pull an item for discussion or further information if needed. Is there any items that need to be further discussed or pulled from the consent calendar?
Madam Chair, I'd move for adoption of the consent calendar as presented.
I'll second that motion.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Hall and a second by Commissioner Miller. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, consent calendar carries. All right, next up onto our decision action items. These are items that we would likely make a decision on today, although that may not always be the case. I am actually going to kind of take rights of the chair and move a few things around here a little bit. I'm actually going to move item B, which is Lincoln County fee schedule changes effective July 1, 2023, presented by County Counsel Chris Neal. I'm going to move that up and have that be the first part of our discussion today. It looks like we have received quite a bit of public comment already on our Smartsheets form. I'm not sure, I can't see the audience if there's people in the audience today for this item as well, but I'm going to go ahead and take this first and probably have some opportunity for public comment before we make a decision on this. So County Counsel Yule.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kristen Yule, County Counsel. So this agenda item came to you several weeks ago. Initially, Katie, can you hear this microphone?
I can hear you very well, Kristen.
So this came to you several weeks ago regarding the proposed changes for various departments in the county. This fee schedule changes and amendments would go into effect July 1st, 2023. And Mr. Lip just pulled it up on the screen. I don't have anything additional. There's no further changes, just what was presented 2 weeks ago. Do you have any questions?
I do not.
And my recommendation, Chair, is that maybe you take public comment regarding this item.
Yes, thank you, Council Yule. Just a couple of comments about the comments we have already received. At least when I checked comments, which was yesterday, pretty late. All the comments we've received in regard to the fee schedule are related to vacation rentals. We had not received other comments and related to the fee schedule or fee changes, just related to SDR licensing and renewal fees. And any other, I think I heard Commissioner Miller say no questions from him. Commissioner Hall, any further questions or need for information from you?
No,
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and do what Council Yule has suggested and see if we have any public comment on this particular item. So this would be anyone here to provide public comment on the fee schedule. If you have other types of public comment on other issues or other things on the agenda, I would request that you wait till our normal public comment time. But if there's any public comment on the fee schedule, I know we had several online that came in through Smartsheets forms. So thank you for using that. Do we have any online public comment in regards to the fee schedule? You are on, raise your virtual hand.
Does not appear so.
Okay, yeah, and I can't see if people raise their hand online, so I rely on you, PIO Lip, to tell me. Thank you. And do we have anybody in person who would like to give in-person public comment in relation to the fee schedule? Oh, you cut out there. Couldn't hear you, Ken.
Does not appear so, Chair.
Does not appear so. Okay. All right. Well, then we will go ahead and make a possible decision on this. Any deliberation? Or are we ready for a moment?
Yeah. A moment, Chair.
I have a question. Did it have anything to do with the East County Fire District at all? Okay.
Sorry, Chair.
All right.
And I couldn't hear what the comment was that was made.
She wanted to know if it had anything to do with the East County Fire District.
Oh, okay. No. All right. Are we ready for deliberation and decision?
I am.
Okay, I am as well.
I would move that we adopt the fee schedule. I have no further discussion itself.
Okay, I'll second that motion, but I would like to make a few comments. You know, we've had a lot of feedback on the issue of the short-term rental fees. And people are saying that this is an unjustifiable fee, but Mr. Lip, do you have that graphic or? I requested, okay, so I'll tell you just a minute.
Stop sharing.
Okay. Well, Lisa Combs from the Sheriff's Office, who has administrative responsibility for the licensing program, came up with a spreadsheet which details the direct costs of the program. And I know not everybody can see that, but basically you're talking about the equivalence of one FTE in the Sheriff's Office, also for administrative purposes, also one FTE for the code enforcement officer. We have to cover the code enforcement vehicle as well, and licensing fee for our software management program. You know, as people may be aware, the ability to buy software is pretty much a thing of the past in a lot of cases. And so we have to pay a yearly licensing fee. And so this and a few other things bring the yearly cost to approximately, well, Ken, can you read that number, please? In red.
$146,962.25.
And then below that, we've got cost comparison. Yeah, that's helpful. So basically what we're looking at is a fee that just covers the direct costs of this program. It doesn't cover a lot of indirect costs, such as legal time of our finance department, our our IT department. So in my mind, and there's been a long-standing unwritten policy that fees of this type should recover the actual cost of providing the service. And I believe that's where this gets us. The $375 a year increase, that translates to roughly $31 a month or $1 a day. And I know not every short-term rental is in this category, but you see many, many units being advertised for rent at anywhere from $500 a night to $2,000 a night. So for a lot of folks, one night or even part of one night's rental is going to cover this cost. You know, we had a lot of vehement comments against the increase, and I think a slightly larger number in favor of this increase, with many folks asking us to consider an even higher increase to help support a more robust enforcement and inspection program. But I think for this year, this is a reasonable first step.
Well, this is excellent. So this isn't in the packet right now, is that
No,
correct?
No,
Okay,
it's not.
so make sure this is,
Let's add that. to the
yeah,
packet.
excellent information. We need to circle back and get that online, and thank you for that. That's good
Certainly.
information.
All right, we do have a motion and a second on the floor, and thank you for your comments, Commissioner Hall. They were very similar to the comments I was planning on making. I do feel like the fee we are proposing and will likely vote on here in a minute is reasonable. We do have to make sure that we recover costs of programming. And I will also say that this is yet another example of how getting behind on those fees, which we have done with some other fees and other departments in the past, is never a good idea. And trying to stay on top of our actual costs for providing service is sort of a better strategy. So I would hope that the numbers presented here today by the sheriff's office, that we will keep up on those. And as we come back to look at fee increases in the future, that we hopefully don't have to make as large as a jump, that we can simply stay on top of increased costs that may come up. So I have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you, everybody. All right, now we're going to move, excuse me, back up our agenda to item A, donation of 224 North Yodel Lane to Habitat for Humanity of Lincoln County. This is one of the projects I've been working on, so I'm very excited to be here today to have this happen. So I will turn it over to County Council Yule.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a continuation of the deeding of 224. It's 224 North Yodel Lane in Otis. So these monies were granted to the county from Oregon Housing Community Services Grant, and it was for identifiable victims of the 2020 wildfire. So Habitat for Humanity, this one would be deeded to them. They would work with CSC to locate a family that would qualify, and this home would be deeded to them under affordable housing contract rules.
Yeah, a couple things I would just add is that this will actually be a home sale through Habitat's home sale program to a family that meets the affordability clause outlined in our grant. So this would be a family that was able to purchase a home through Habitat's program at an affordable rate, which is very exciting to create another homeowner in Lincoln County. Any other questions or comments or need for discussion from commissioners?
No, nothing for me, but Katie, I know you can't see the room. Holly Romero is here from Habitat. Just wanted to let you know she's applauding. But I have no questions and am ready to make a motion.
I have no questions.
Okay. Ms. Romero, is there anything you would like to say or add before we make a motion? If you want to, you can come forward, or you don't have to. It's up to you.
Come on up. Okay.
Actually, I just want to say thank you. We are so excited at Habitat for Humanity of Lincoln County. So I'm here on behalf of the board, but also the staff and the many families that we already serve here in Lincoln County, to say thank you for continuing to be a partner with us in creating yet another pathway for safe and affordable housing. And we look forward to continuing this relationship with all of you. So I'm also here to say thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Excellent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All I can really say is ditto on all the comments that you provided, so thank you. With that, I would actually like to make the motion if you don't mind. So I will make a motion for us to donate 224 North Yodel Lane to Habitat for Humanity of Lincoln County for affordable housing.
And I'll second that motion.
Sure.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving down to item C, staff report on audit request for proposal presented by our county administrator, Tim Johnson.
Chair, Commissioners, this is a follow-up for the approval for a request for proposal for audit services for the county. At our last meeting on June 7th, I provided you with an overview. In part, the reason why we have not proceeded on this in recent years was caused by the circumstances of COVID-19 pandemic, and the timing of the previous contract was subsequently extended with the current service provider. However, now that the pandemic is over, the county is seeking this opportunity. We are recommending that the question before you is to approve the request and direct staff to initiate a advertising for the request for proposal to obtain bids for financial services.
I have no questions, Madam Chair.
I have no questions either. Commissioner Hall, either questions or comments from you?
Yeah, one question, and I probably should have checked with you before the meeting on this, but how long has our present firm been under contract to us? It seems like a number of years. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I should have thought of that sooner, but you know, one thing I think it's just good to observe is that there's pretty much a recommendation among public entities that you switch auditors every few years to get fresh eyes on the books and to making sure we're following law and procedures. And so I believe this is timely.
Yeah, no comments from me. Thank you to Administrator Johnson for moving on this, and I think it's a good idea. So,
All right, so do we need a motion?
yeah, I would move that we approve the request proposal for audit services.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving on to our last item under decision and action. Public Works Project 8093 longitudinal pavement markings bid approval presented by Public Works Director Roy Kenyon.
Commissioner. Roy Kenyon, Lincoln County Public Works Director, and what is in front of us today is the contract with specialized pavement markings for basically our annual paint striping project. The contract is for $119,044.46, I think, which is a very scaled down project. When we received our first bids, they were 3 times more than what we had expected. Not really sure exactly what it was. I know that there was actually a consolidation of striping companies. Competition reduced. Plus, I also know that the county which traditionally did our striping, their striping crew retired, their truck retired. They're in the process of buying a new one, so I'm hoping that next year for that beginning of work with the county, which is cheaper than what we're currently paying. And because of the actual extreme cost of the bids, we reduced the project to center line only plus 20 miles of critical problem. Most of the time, fog line does last longer than center line. And so we feel that we basically skirt one year for the most critical fog line. So I'm asking you to do the contract with specialized pavement markings. Price stated,
And this won't take effect until sometime in the summer, worse. We expect it to be dry, that's always been. Wow, yes, here, but they'll take advantage of those opportunities.
All right. I have no questions.
I have no questions.
Neither do I. I have no questions either. So is one of you ready to make a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move that Public Works Project 8093 longitudinal pavement markings that we approve the low bid received.
Okay, and I'll second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you, Director Kenyon.
Thank you.
Next up,
Thanks, Will.
moving on to discussion and information. We could make decisions on these items if we would like to. So first up is County ARPA or American Rescue Plan Act allocations. And just for some kind of historical reference here, we received ARPA money quite a while ago as part of a COVID recovery package from the federal government. We did have some initial allocations that were made. We kept some kind of in holding for other projects later down the line. There is reason to believe at this point, from having communication with our federal elected officials, that we need to both allocate and start spending out our ARPA money, because the federal government is talking about taking that back if you have not spent it. So I put together sort of some thoughts and ideas of things I had heard from meetings and talks with community partners and other things as a starting point for us to have this discussion on how to allocate and spend out our remaining ARPA dollars. I don't know if Administrator Johnson would like to take it from here.
And excuse me, Madam Chair, Ken, could you screen share with, I believe Administrator Johnson, you're looking at your staff report now. If you go to the packet, Ken, online, it's page 441. Yeah, then that's where staff report begins. Thank you. Thank you, Madam.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for that. And again, I'm open to discussion on all these things. I just felt like maybe taking a first shot at looking at some of this would be helpful for discussion and ultimate allocation.
Okay.
All right, take it away, Administrator Johnson.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioner. A lot of quality work being done here. Lincoln County, like other jurisdictions across the country, received an allocation from the American Rescue Plan Act, which was signed into law by Congress on March 11th, 2021. Seems like a lifetime ago. We've all through this process. Its intent was to help change the course of the pandemic and deliver immediate and direct relief to families, businesses, workers, and governmental agencies impacted by COVID-19 through no fault of their own. As was identified, we still have about $3.6 million that can be identified for recovery into the county area. And Chair Jacobson has provided a framework and a discussion point on a variety of different elements. Chair, did you want us to walk through those, just highlight these items, or would you like to do that?
I'll walk through and highlight. And again, this is just a place to open up discussion. So the first one on the list was a spay and neuter program. Proposed funding would be about $300,000. As probably both of you in the public are aware, we had several different animal related impacts to COVID-19. One was that many people got pandemic pets, as they were kind of phrased. And now we're seeing a large increase in population of those pets that are overwhelming our shelters, and the need to get them spayed or neutered is there. Additionally, vets in Oregon were shut down for several months, many months, and could not do elective surgeries, and spay and neutering were considered elective surgery. So not only do people have pandemic pets, but they were not able to get them spayed or neutered during that time. So many times they've creating more pets. Additionally, community cats, also known as feral cats, which various organizations worked on keeping those populations down by spay or neutering, also were not able to get spayed or neutered during that time. So their populations have increased as well. So this funding would be working with many of our animal partners as well as local vets and the College of OSU Vet Medicine and some other partners to basically help have a reduced cost spay and neuter program for low income households and also for community/feral cats. I'm just going to kind of keep going down the list here and then we can have a discussion afterward. Broadband Action Team proposed funding here is $80,000. I don't know as much about this as maybe Commissioner Miller was, but I had heard this was a funding need, which is why it was in there. Broadband is one of the things you can spend American Rescue Plan Act funding on, especially rural broadband. And we're on a rural area. The Broadband Action Team is a group across several counties that is working on bringing more federal money into rural areas for broadband investment.
Yeah. And
anything-
thank you, Madam
Yeah.
Chair, on this particular issue. Administrator Johnson and I are diving into some of the particulars, so I'm glad we have a chance to really move from here and discuss some of those things. Tim, any thoughts on this particular item?
Yeah, he's quickly, very timely, Chair, on this. The county, to its credit, had submitted and received a grant of over $300,000 2 years ago. And that became a regional effort with Lynn Lane and Benton County looking at broadband accessibility, affordability. The report will be completed in August, so all eyes will be on this and give us a next steps of what we as a county, individually as a county within that region need to take. And I think this would be a key component to helping that. I also identified yesterday, and I sent this to you late last night, that the state Senate bill for the completion of their budget had in excess of 150 million as well set aside for counties as it pertains to broadband. So the timing of this is spot on.
Okay, thank you, Tim. No other comments from me, Madam Chair.
Thanks. I'll just keep moving down the list. Next one is winter sheltering. Lincoln County Health and Human Services, HHS, is wanting to stand up a winter sheltering program to serve Lincoln County homeless clients. This will include ongoing sheltering over the winter months that would not be triggered by temperature only. In fact, we should probably have HHS come and provide a presentation to us. Myself and Jane Romero were up at City, but I don't think we've actually had a full presentation to our board, though individual conversations will take place. This funding would be used over the next couple of winters until we have to spend out our ARPR money. There was one change to this ask is working with Administrator Johnson and reviewing some things about ARPA funding. It currently says funds will go towards hiring staff. We actually likely cannot use this money to hire staff. So this would be used for more hard funded items such as a building lease, insurance, food, any other sort of hard costs not relating to staffing. So that's one change in that, but the amount would remain the same. Again, just moving down the list. Courtroom flooring. I will let County Administrator Johnson take this one. This is one of his.
Thank you, Chair. In an effort to constantly keep up to date with what we do here, we do take care of courts. And that is a key component, and one of the elements associated with it have been the issue associated with older carpets and COVID in those carpets. And so we're trying to remove that as quickly as we possibly can, and the ability to do so is identified in this line.
Great. Thank you, Administrator Johnson. Moving on to affordable housing. I'm not going to spend time telling you both why we need affordable housing. I think you both understand that. We can use ARPA money for affordable housing. There is constraints around that. ARPA money is not known as being super flexible, but you can do it. And in my research, as well as talking with Administrator Johnson, this would probably be money more towards property purchase and that kind of thing, more so than purchasing affordable housing that is already built, just around the constraints of money. So this would be used either internally, or we could give to one of our affordable housing partners for a housing project that they would develop and manage. And again, we'd have to meet those ARPA guidelines, which has some constraints, but is certainly possible to do. Moving down the line here, county parks,
Madam Chair,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
yes.
Before we
Yeah.
move on from that, could I ask a question?
of course.
That I'm curious in the thinking on excluding acquisition of existing affordable housing.
Yeah, and looking at guidelines around ARPA money, there are some very strict guidelines you have to follow around purchasing an existing affordable housing project. It could be done, but I think it would be difficult to find a building that would actually meet those criteria. So that's why I kind of put this in land acquisition, because bare land has less constraints involving the funding source than a land that already has a building on it.
Okay, I'd like to just make a couple of comments and observations, maybe a marker for future discussion. But Community Services Consortium received funding in 2008 to acquire a 6-unit apartment in Newport called Turnhouse, which has been in the affordable housing stock ever since. Then in 2010, they acquired Pelican Place. And CSC wants to get out of the business of operating housing. They feel like that's not within their wheelhouse. So they are actively looking to sell both these units for 16 units at the 2 buildings for $1.5 million. But they're asking 1/3 down, so roughly $500,000. And I don't know what steps we can take to support potential purchase of this by Northwest Coastal Housing or another housing nonprofit, because we're looking at $500,000 down, 1.5 million total to preserve 16 affordable units. And when you consider land acquisition, fees, permits, utilities, material, and labor, you could not create 16 new units of affordable housing for anything close to that amount.
Yeah, I hear you on this, Commissioner Hall. Unfortunately, ARPA funding is just not super flexible around some of this.
Okay. Understood.
Yeah, my suggestion would be that we allocate the money for affordable housing. We can dig into it later. Additionally, there still could be things we could use ARPA funding for on this project, like due diligence. Right, we could assist them in things like if they needed a title search done, or if they needed a really good inspection of the buildings or things such as that. We could probably still use this money to dig in. But again, my suggestion would be that we allocate the money, because I am worried about it being taken from us. And then we can dig in with detail on how we're allocating that and criteria and that kind of stuff after it's protected by being allocated. That's my suggestion.
Understood.
Okay. Sorry, Commissioner Miller.
Sounds good, Kate. Thank you.
Okay. Anything you wanted to add to that, Administrator Johnson?
Fine, thank you. And if you want to, you can direct us to look into further options as it pertains to that.
Yeah. Like I said, I think we all agree that affordable housing is important to our community. So, I would suggest we allocate it, and then we can dig through the details later. Okay, moving on, county parks, digitization. I think we all know we have some fabulous county parks here. Most of our county parks are either first come, first serve, or sometimes telephone reservations, with the exception of, I think, one of our cabin systems. We really don't have a great online reservation system. So this money would go towards creating one. One of the things you can spend ARPA money on is creating better online services for the constituents. So this fits right in line with this. It isn't simply providing the reservation system, which we would use a vendor for, but you have to think that in these remote locations where our parks are at, those parks hosts have to be able to log into that reservation system, right, to check in somebody. So it's also making sure that we have adequate internet, Wi-Fi, computers, etc. at those actual locations, which is tricky because a lot of them are rural and don't necessarily have great broadband. So this will be both creating that system for our guests, but also the system internally for our park hosts and other to use as well. Also, making sure that we have, again, internet access at those locations and that sort of thing. All
Awesome.
right, gotta flip my page here. Courthouse Administration Building planning. I'm gonna let Administrator Johnson take this one.
One of the key issues that has been brought to our attention is a seismic report on this building. It is a key concern for me, for the safety and well-being of people that need to use this building for a whole host of services, including the courts. And within the context of that, the state in 1984 through the legislation passed the financial responsibility to all counties for their courts. And as such, this places and has placed us under extra burden in which to address this issue. So one of the things that we have diligently been trying to understand is the facility itself, its actual structure. At over 70 years of age, it is sadly and unfortunately feeling its age. We're going to have to be putting significant work into the facility later this summer, as we have had intrusion of water off the roof down through at least one courtroom. And it does and has impacted even the DOC offices with water intrusion and actually percolation up through the floor. So barring, getting the mops out and trying to keep this place dry during the wet season, we are proposing several different items here. One, first and foremost, is a space use study so that we understand what the next 40 to 50 years will be looking like for this county. Within the context of that, an update on that seismic study, because to my review, and since I've been here over the last year, that was done over a decade ago, and a lot of changes have occurred relative to seismic requirements and other uniform building and fire code requirements as well for this building. The third item, and I think is really important, is to look at how we would finance improvements, if not complete new construction of this building for another 40 to 50 year time horizon, if not longer. So that is what the focus of attention is on this, and I think it's extremely important, not only for the safety and welfare of our customers, but also for our employees.
Okay, thank you, County Administrator Johnson. All right, moving down the list to conversion of digital records in the clerk's office. Clerk's office has been working on digitizing many of their records, but they still have several that can only be viewed in person at the clerk's office through a microfiche machine. In fact, several times when I've been up there, I've seen our own public works director on the microfiche machine. So if the clerk's office would be allowed an additional $20,000, they could basically finish up that project in a more timely manner. And basically phase out the use of the microfiche machine and have all of the documents being able to be viewed electronically, which would certainly be easier for the public. Also in the clerk's office is election observation cameras. So of course, during COVID-19, trying to get better electronic observation of elections was very critical. They did install cameras previously, I believe, using some ARPA funds. They're requesting $12,000 for 4 additional cameras to be placed in the ballot counting room to allow remote viewing of the election process. I did vet this request with the IT department, and it includes both the cameras, the licensing for the cameras, and the network infrastructure required for camera installation. So it should cover all costs for putting in those 4 additional cameras. And then again, moving down the list is generators. Lincoln County actually lacks kind of appropriate generators to power essential county operations and services during inclement weather, as we found out this last winter. emergencies, brownouts, or other reasons that power may be lost. So working with the facilities department, they would use this money to purchase both fixed position generators, the generators that stay in place, but also portable generators that would be installed at appropriate locations or be able to go out on a trailer, say to supply power to a park or other locations outside of the courthouse. So this would basically help us be more resilient in an emergency. Of the roughly $498,000 that are left in unallocated ARPA funds, there was a lot of different requests from communities and things that different nonprofits need, et cetera. My thought was to put what's left over in kind of a nonprofit support allocation with the remaining budget of ARPA monies that we have, so that nonprofits could make requests to us. We would need to open up a grant program. I will say that this would not be as maybe easy or kind of unencumbered as our typical nonprofit social service grants or even economic development grants that we provide would be. Again, this is federal money. This is ARPA money. It's not county money. There are constraints around ARPA money and eligibility. So it would be both on the applicant to do their due diligence on what ARPA money projects can include, but also on our end as well to make sure that that project meets ARPA eligibility. Additionally, organizations that receive more than $50,000 in ARPA money, whether it's from us or maybe from us in a city, so it could be combined over other grants they may have received, have to be able and willing to go through a federal audit. So that may, that very requirement may exclude some nonprofits that have not gone through that or don't feel they're able to go through that. So again, this may not be as easy as a process as our typical nonprofit social service grants. That being said, I do think there are some good projects sitting out there that are ARPA eligible, whether they be infrastructure projects or whether there'll be more social service projects that would fit ARPA requirements that would help our community quite a bit. So that is my, like I said, my thoughts. I thought this would help us in just having a discussion. I just want to say thanks to all the departments that helped me kind of put this proposal together. Learned a lot about a lot of different things in the process. So thank you to everybody to kind of help pull this together. And wish that I'll kind of open it up for discussion.
Madam Chair, I guess I'll take a first shot at some thoughts. I think these appropriations, these proposals are great. Ending there with that nonprofit, this is great. I think this broadens things up just beyond the things we've identified. And my only concerns are really that we've got a lot of opportunity here, that we have the capacity to deploy these ideas and also that we can sustain things. I think we need to be looking at those pieces of taking advantage of these opportunities. So something to be mindful about. And then I suppose we'll discuss this, but how we're going to move forward and the timeliness and how we sort of take that on. I'm curious to see what the best approach is.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Miller. Commissioner Hall.
Question for Administrator Johnson. Remind me, please, what's the spend down deadline the federal government has imposed for these dollars?
We actually should have all of this under contract by the end of 2024.
Calendar 2024?
That's
Okay.
correct. So by December 31st, we should have all this nailed down. Now, to Chair's credit, there has been significant discussion on the floor of Congress relative to clawing back these dollars.
Yeah.
Rightly or wrongly, they probably should look internally because I have to always remind people, our Congress put out over $3 trillion. And when we did this, and I know go back in history for a moment for everybody, we forget that when we had the Great Recession, we had not only TARP, but we had a secondary program of nearly $1 trillion, and the federal government didn't even get close to expending 3/4 of that amount of money. And they're in the same scenario today with this, the American Rescue Plan Act Local Fiscal Recovery Fund that we are a direct recipient and why we're having this discussion. The Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act, and then the corresponding anti-inflationary reduction act. And those three out there alone have really thrusted us into an interesting scenario. In the upcoming next item, we'll be talking about the budget, and this county staff has done a tremendous job working to acquire federal grants for a whole host of county programs and projects and services. And it will continue throughout the course of this year, something that I'm very proud and honored to work with these men and women who are pursuing that. So as such, there is a deadline to this, even if Congress doesn't work to claw this back from away from us. So, and then there's one other element. You can get it under contract. Then you have basically through 2025 to ensure that all of expenditures happen. However, one of the key things that we have not really bridged yet, and that is when an audit does occur. Because the audits can begin in 2025, whether we have these spent or not. So I think the speed in which we expedite this is tantamount to the county's success.
So, Madam Chair, I'll just make a few observations.
Sure.
I think this is a good list, a really comprehensive list. I know there's a lot of sideboards on this money. The fact that it can't be used to pay staff costs being one of the primary ones, but certainly not the only ones. You know, just as in all of our spending, I think we've tried to approach it very thoughtfully. And I think I would be comfortable approving this list in part because we'll have time to come up with the best approaches. For example, the spending of the affordable housing funds, the allocation programs to the nonprofits. That this is broad enough to give us some leeway for further research and consideration, but specific enough, hopefully, to meet the federal government's expectations.
Thank you, Commissioner Hall. Yeah, that was part of my plan is, trying to make things a little bit broad so we had some flexibility while still, allocating the money appropriately. So I guess my maybe thoughts from here is that maybe we think about this. This is, I think, the first time, or maybe you saw it a few days ago when it came out in the packet, but first time you all have seen this as well as the public. So I would say we think about this. Any potential changes can go back to Administrator Johnson for tweaking or thoughts or what have you. I would also just say that a great resource where I find out all of my information on ARPA money is the National Association of Counties, NACO website. They have a whole section that kind of walks you through eligible uses and final rulings and all of that kind of stuff. So that's a great resource as well. So I think we bring this back at our next Board of Commissioners meeting for more discussion and adoption, if that sounds okay to both of you.
I'm fine with that.
And I'm fine with that too, Madam Chair, but I do want to clarify, we have a special meeting next week originally intended for budget discussions, but we are including other subject matter now in that meeting. So are you looking at a couple weeks, Katie, or next week's meeting to?
I could go either way. I kind of forgot about that special meeting, Commissioner Miller, until you said it. So in my head, I was having us come back in 2 weeks in July. I think that should be okay. I think if Tim or I start hearing from our federal partners that that's not okay, we need to allocate it right now, then certainly we can change that. But I think at this point we would be okay waiting 2 weeks to give people more time to digest and be thoughtful if that's kind of the will of the board.
And that
I'm
would-
fine with that.
Me too, and that would give me more time as well, so I
Okay.
appreciate it. Okay,
All right, any other questions on that? Nope.
No.
All right, we'll bring it back in 2 weeks.
Okay.
All right, excuse me. All right, moving down our list of discussion and information, Lincoln County 2023-2024 budget presented by Christina Shearer, our finance director, and Tim Johnson, our county administrator.
Just a question before they begin, Madam Chair. Did we skip over discussion item A, the surplusing of vehicles?
oh,
Huh?
So. the
Oh, we
online-
moved it to consent. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah,
My bad.
thank you. All right, thank you, Commissioner Hall. Yes, I had that on my agenda as well, but I checked the online agenda and saw that it had been removed, so. All
Okay.
right, budget.
Chair, Commissioners, today we're here to present a preliminary presentation. This will be two that will be before you today, and then the 28th as required by state regulations. So the question is that should the Board of Commissioners approve the county budget, the budgets of the corresponding special districts, transportation, the extension service, solid waste, animal services, and the select area enhanced law enforcement district. Recall that this year we embarked on several new items that were recommended by our management team. Very proud of the efforts that were embarked, specifically directed to our finance department and the heavy lift associated with bringing forth a new budget software, OpenGov, which I think has really provided great and insightful opportunity to present our budget. As we went through this process, we were impacted by a couple of extenuating circumstances that constituted us while we were going through the initial public hearings, 8 that we had. That we had to inform you that we needed to do a revised balanced budget, which we did and presented that, and the budget committee approved that action. That's the reason why we were before you here today and next week on the 28th. Within the context of that, and just again for purposes of those who may be hearing this for the first time, that the revision was due to several things that have occurred. One that there was related to a labor contract issue and subsequent settlement on that, and then subsequently substantial increases on insurance premiums for general liability and vehicle insurance. And that continues to be an issue we are working on resolution for. We have been in pursuit of that. But that was an identified $1.5 million that we need to come up with, and just roughly 3.3 million. I'm sorry, 3.3% of the forecasted general fund next fiscal year. So within the context of that, again, the committee approved that action during the course of the 8 committee meetings. The public was privy to the budgetary insights of our departments, both operated by elected officials and appointed directors. You can see a variety of different actions that were identified in the context of that relative to the general fund.
and excuse me, Administrator, Ken, could you screen share page 446 on the back of this? Okay, continue. Administrator Johnson, pardon me.
So within the context of that, we've been able to resolve that, and again, we'll talk about at length at our 28th meeting.
Yeah.
But Director Shearer has work that she's done on attachment A.
Okay.
And if that is an issue for you, we can address those now. So as it pertains to the county, well, again, we were looking at about $1.5 million. And it has been resolved internally by either looking at reduction of costs, new revenue streams, in lieu of gain of dollars. So kind of nothing creative, just standard, straightforward, hardworking budgeting, to the best of our ability, solutions that were great. And going through this process, we're proud of the fact that we presented this revised budget to the management team. They unanimously supported it, and for the most part, did not have any impact on future customer service requirements and any cutbacks with services from the county to our customers.
Thank you. Christina, any thoughts?
I do have one question. If I could, again, these look like the kind of final adjustments we make every year before the new budget year begins, the new fiscal year. But I know there's a requirement that adjustments larger than 10% of the total budget require calling back the budget committee. That 10% or less we can do on our authority. We're not even close here with these adjustments to triggering that percentage, are we?
And these adjustments were already approved.
Oh, okay, these were, so.
Yeah.
So this is us, taking the final review step then. That's right.
Yeah. John Heath is here as well, regular at these meetings, budget committee member. And so next week we'll be kind of reviewing essentially what we just reviewed.
We'll take the time and presentation one more time.
Okay.
Encapsulating the action of what we did throughout the month of May.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
Thank you, Administrator Johnson and Director Shear. One thing I was just going to add, if the public is watching and they're just now catching up, budget committee meetings are recorded, so you can go back and watch all of the presentations from all of our department heads and service districts about services and that sort of thing as well. So if you're just kind of catching up on this, there's a whole bunch of videos you can watch that would walk you through that process.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And additionally, there's PowerPoints from each department, which I think are really illustrative of what's happening, across our organization, which is really helpful.
Absolutely. And our budget book, which isn't really a budget book this year as much as it is a website, is fabulous, I would say. So thank you to everyone who worked on that as well. It has some great information for everybody on the county budget and services. All right. Any other questions or information needed on this item at this time?
None for me.
Nope.
Not for me.
All right, thank you, Christina and Tim. Moving on to item C, ordinance 527, fireworks sale and use in unincorporated Lincoln County. This is presented by the Board of Commissioners. It was not me that put this on the agenda, so I'm hoping it was either Commissioner Hall or Commissioner Miller that can take this one.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. I did request this be put on our agenda. And just for the public's benefit, we passed ordinance 527 last year, giving the board authority to prohibit sales and or use of fireworks in unincorporated Lincoln County. I think historically for us, I was not on the board at that time. I was your public information officer. And it, to me, seemed like a good step forward in leadership so that this board has the authority to make that call if they think it's prudent. Additionally, I think it's something that's been trending. We're seeing movements in both the prohibition and sales across the states, even across the county's jurisdiction. So it seemed prudent to me that we follow up on last year's momentum to have this discussion. And I would say up front that I felt some urgency to move more quickly, but we do have a meeting next week. So whatever happens here now, I think we can move the rest of that discussion to next week's meeting, Katie. I guess, what's really unfolded for me in the last several weeks and for you as well, we've got input coming in regard to the use of fireworks. And, clearly it's just that time of the year when we start thinking about these things. We've been doing our wildfire outreach. We currently have community presentations. So this is all sort of coming into the fold in regards of community awareness. Also recently, we had a fire debris burn ban. That was a unilateral movement from the Fire Defense Board, not related to fireworks, but for me, that is an indicator of what circumstances are like out there and the risks due to wildfire. So we have had conversations, or I have had conversations with multiple fire chiefs. Curtis Landers, Sheriff Landers is in the room today, too, in case we need to ping him for any discussions. I've spoken to Oregon Department of Forestry as well. Chief Brian Daniels is with us online as well, in case we have any questions. So, I just wanted to begin the discussion, and where would you like to take it from here?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Miller. I do appreciate you putting this on the agenda. It is rather timely. I would actually like to hear from Chief Daniels. I think you said they were in person or either online.
Yeah, Chief seems to be with us, but we'll wait and see here. Can you hear us?
I can,
Chief
I'm here.
Daniels?
Yes.
Okay. Katie, can you hear him easily too?
I can. Thank you, Chief Daniels, for joining us today. I'm sure you just heard the discussion presented by Commissioner Miller. I'm hoping, it sounds like Commissioner Miller has had discussions with you, although I have not had discussions with you recently on this. So I was hoping you could kind of provide some information on where the Fire Defense Board is with fireworks this year, if there's recommendations from them to jurisdictions to ban fireworks sale, indoor use, and provide us some information on things from your end. Thanks.
No problem. It's kind of all about timing, and it's a moving target for a lot of players when it comes to fireworks sales and use. And unfortunately, fire districts have already issued permits for the sales of fireworks, and these are all safe and sane fireworks, right? Within Lincoln County, and this is throughout multiple jurisdictions. Now, we know that the county has put in place an ordinance to ban the use or the continued sale of fireworks if there is a weather event, which is a smart move. And there are a number of jurisdictions, municipalities, I should say, that have outright bans. That includes the city of Depot Bay and I believe Lincoln City. We try to cooperate as fire districts or fire chiefs when we issue those sales permits with our local jurisdictions. For instance, it would be foolish of me to allow for the sale of fireworks within the city of Depot Bay limits when we know that there is an ordinance that bans the outright use of fireworks. And so we try to take a cooperative approach there. There are a number of fireworks permits that have been filed for the sale of fireworks in Lincoln County. And those are regulated again by each fire district. And so the hope is that there is some cooperation there with those types of issuance of permits. Just to put it into perspective, this is a conversation that we should regularly have in November and December of each year. And it's very hard for us to predict where we're going to land with any fire threat throughout the county or the state for that matter, when we talk about the summer months. But to give you some data, in June of 22 and May of 22, we had over 6.6 inches of rain accumulation for those months. In June, so far in May of 23 and June of 23, we've had 0.69 inches of rain. June of 23, a quarter inch of rain. I know we had some precipitation come through, I believe Saturday, Sunday, Monday, but it wasn't enough. We are so far under what the normal trends are for us on the coast. And based on the El Nino patterns that are developing and data from the Northwest Coordination Group, who kind of give us these fire weather forecasts, we are very much aligning up for a continued weather pattern similar, if not worse than 2022, where a majority of the Northwest is under a heightened risk for wildfire. So the data is there to support some conversation about what the county is going to do or what cities are going to do to ban the use of fireworks. Unfortunately, fire districts, we don't have the luxury to ban the use of fireworks. That's up to local governance, counties and cities. We can ban the use, or we can ban the professional showing of fireworks, or the professional displays based on fire danger, because we are the authority having jurisdiction over fire protection. But we can't, again, ban the use because that's up to each city and county. And then enforcement is the third leg in this whole tier, or this problem. Law enforcement is the authority to regulate, I guess, the use of fireworks overall. We know, and we have to remind our public on a regular basis, that all fireworks are always banned on beaches. Always. They're always banned on state parks and state property. And they're always banned on United States Forest Service land. They're also prohibited on forest lands, which is a large part of unincorporated Lincoln County. And fire districts don't regulate that. We require enforcement by OSP, cities, or the county sheriff. And so again, a cooperative approach is necessary, and these conversations need to happen, a lot sooner. I want to touch on the crosswalk, or the confusion when it comes to burn bans and fireworks use. They do not tie hand in hand. And I know it's unfortunate and it's very confusing that each fire district can ban by ORS. We can ban debris burning, but we can't ban or enforce the use of fireworks. And it's very confusing. It's my hope as the Fire Defense Board chief and as a member of the Oregon Fire Chiefs Association that those things change legislatively in the future, because it sends a very confusing message that you can use fireworks when you're in a debris burn ban. There are a number of trigger points that we are using throughout the county, including the fire weather watches that may come in from the National Weather Service, or the red flag warnings, which really put an outright ban on burning throughout the county. We're already under that. As I've said earlier, we've got no measurable or very little measurable precipitation in the past 30 days and none in the foreseeable future. We also, most agencies in the county have received state fire marshal upstaffing grants. So there will be extra personnel. Depot Bay, Lincoln City, and Newport are going to be staffing extra resources starting, I believe, on the 1st of July all the way through the holiday weekend. But it still may not be enough for us to manage or mitigate, the use of fireworks or the fallout, no pun intended. The fire districts remain your face in Lincoln County, and we don't mind giving friendly reminders about who's using illegal fireworks or where they should use them. The public, though, they contact us a lot to discuss or to ask questions when it comes to where they can use fireworks, and they often don't like our messages because it's a celebratory event. The beach is probably the safest spot to use them. Unfortunately, they're banned there. And so people get creative, or they use them on their own property, which is near their houses or near the dried out vegetation. And so we try to stay on active patrol and give those educational reminders. And we know law enforcement is swamped just like we are on the holiday weekend. We are expecting a major influx here, starting on the 1st. And we expect the traditional use of fireworks, both legal and illegal, throughout Lincoln County. With that, I'll entertain some questions. I know that that's a lot of information. I've been working with Commissioner Miller over the past couple of weeks, as well as Matt Thomas from ODF, to try and help some of the dissemination of information here.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Madam Chair, can I follow up, or how would you like to proceed?
Oh, follow up.
Okay, I think we should, take some time. I know we're getting close to receive input. We are just opening this discussion right now. Some of my preliminary thoughts are that maybe a future iteration of our ordinance is in lockstep with the fire debris burn ban. So when that is declared, that then possibly that triggers then the prohibition of use at that time, and then it's lifted when the debris burn ban is lifted. That's one thought I have in regard to moving forward, because, and this is a question for Chief Daniels. Chief, when we think about those debris burn bans, my understanding is that there's a kind of a complex algorithm there of energy, but there is a weather component clearly to that debris burn ban. Could you just add to that, or?
Right. When we talk about components like 1 hour fuels or 10-hour fuels or 100-hour fuels, or the energy release components from our fuels within our region, based with weather patterns or expected precipitation or moisture recoveries for some of those finer fuels, those kind of drive the factors for us. The other logical factor is when some debris bands get a little sporty. And so we recognize that maybe some data isn't really reflective of what's happening in the real world. And so if some burn bans or some burning gets, a little challenging, that's time for us to start considering these things. We enacted this year's burn ban in May, which is a month at least shy of or earlier than years past. And traditionally, it's usually done in each July as we kick off the hotter days of summer.
Yeah, and my understanding is that April was the earliest a burn ban has ever been declared in 21. So, clearly things are getting drier. I think, in my opinion, that's the way it's going. So now, in regard to sales, PIO, Ken Lip and I, we did some investigation, and we noticed that the city of Newport, others have probably seen it in the news, that the city of Newport prohibited use but not sales. That may be attributed to the fact that people took out permits. Interestingly, looks like they pulled out sales out of their ordinance, 100%. City of Lincoln City, my understanding is prohibited sales but not use. So I suspect we need to investigate that piece of it a little bit. But moving forward, my thoughts are that we continue to take input. I'm leaning towards considering that we prohibit use until the debris burn ban is lifted in unincorporated Lincoln County. That's just my preliminary thoughts, but
I think it's good to remind people that we only have the authority to do this, or if we choose not to do it, in the unincorporated areas. This is one of the many policy choices where the cities have the authority within their jurisdiction.
Yeah, Commissioner Miller and Commissioner Paul, thank you for bringing this up. I guess a couple of things I would say here. One is it is June 21st.
Yeah.
And so I think the conversation about having conversations earlier in the year and all of that. Every year we say this and then
Right.
it kind of drops. So I would just say right now, let's please task Commissioner Miller. It seems that you've taken an interest in this, which
Sure.
is great. To after July 4th is over, moving into the following year, why don't we look at some of this policy or changing our ordinance 527? I think looking into matching it with a burn ban is a really good idea that should be explored at least.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of tasking with you if you're willing to kind of take this on, looking at how to do this better, differently, et cetera, after the holiday. And then in terms of dealing with this holiday right now, again, it is June 21st. I know you had suggested, Commissioner Miller, we bring it back at our special meeting next week, which is the 26th, I do believe. I'm looking at a calendar right here, 26, I think. Yes, 28th, sorry, 8th. And my concern, and I'd like to hear from Sheriff Landers, I think he's maybe in the audience, so I haven't seen his face, is so if we did take action on the 28th, that would give law enforcement 3 days to do any type of outreach to the public about this. And I just don't feel like that's adequate for them to let the public know what is happening here. So I guess I would like to see if Sheriff Landers is in the room and maybe provide comment on timing of this, if he's there.
Sheriff Landers is approaching.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Sheriff, can you bring that microphone to your face a little closer? That would help.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How's this?
Much better.
Better.
Okay, Curtis Landers, Lincoln County Sheriff. So I echo a lot of the comments that Chief Daniels was saying. I think that it really is a bit tricky at this point that permits have already been issued, and I see what occurred in Newport where they're allowing the sales but not the use, and that to me is really confusing for the public to, I bought these here, but I can't use them here. And I definitely agree with what the commissioners are saying as far as discussing this earlier. I don't know if November, December, it's hard to, when we're going into the rainy season, discuss it, but, put a date, April, May, to really start looking at where we're at so that we can really gain that momentum as far as marketing campaign, as far as, let people know. So maybe they can, if they want to shoot fireworks off, they're going to go somewhere else maybe. And so where they can do that instead of come here and camp thinking they're going to be able to do that and not be able to. That also is, enforcement wise, regardless of timing, is a difficult thing for us to do with the influx of people and calls that come in from other things. We have to prioritize that. It's one of those things that we know that in order for it to really be effective, we need enforcement. And we need enforcement earlier, because once you start issuing a few tickets, then obviously the word gets out and people want to do it. It's when tickets aren't issued and people are like, well, they didn't get it more and more. And, people just continue to do it. And then the ordinance really has no teeth into what they're trying to really accomplish. So we really need to earlier on, if we're going to take that route, if the commissioners want to go with that, because I want to be one that whatever ordinances you provide, I want to be able to force them to accomplish the goals that you're looking at. And so having that early on where we can develop an enforcement plan early on and really attack that early to get the message out to the citizens. And then if they continue to do that, start issuing citations to where that's really going to push them. We have a difficult enough time just enforcing the fireworks that are illegal in the county. People bring those in from other states, as we know. They come in here, and that's already a difficult job to have enforcement on during that busy weekend, even though we do not let anybody have any time off, and we have several people on overtime during those just to maintain the calls that are coming in for other things and prioritizing these things. So it's difficult, but at this point this year, timing will be really difficult for us to get any message out without it being completed.
Okay.
Sheriff, County Council. So one of the recommendations is the new road signs. And so if the board were to act today, those road signs would be placed at the entrances to the county to inform people that personal fireworks did not be used. So that is an option on that.
Sure.
I mean, I think you've always indicated that enforcement's always going to be tricky.
Yeah.
So the education is possible.
Yeah, yeah, correct.
My
Okay.
advice.
Thank you for reminding us that, County Council, you'll appreciate that.
Yeah.
I guess my advice would be is we could use the signs. Really do a campaign about dangers of fireworks and responsible use, but really that Lincoln County is limited because of the fire situation that's going on. Get the message out that way that maybe that they're not illegal, but really, you gotta be careful around here and because of all the dangers and you can still use the things for that without the wet situation.
Okay.
Madam Chair, could I ask a question of council?
Of course.
So, Council Yule, if we did choose to go ahead with a usage ban today, what legal instrument do we need to implement that, like an ordinance or?
So you have the ordinance in place, so it's by resolution. Ordinance. So you would just need to resolve that, consumer fireworks cannot be used. But I want to clarify one thing. So in the ordinance, if you look at subsection 3, so this exempts any public display permits issued under 48130.
Okay.
And so the state has jurisdiction to issue a permit. So people apply to the state fire marshal and then they go through the criteria and they will issue a permit. So you have no authority to restrict those.
Mhm.
And so as Chief Daniels, I'd like some input from Chief Daniels. When you receive permits for the sale of fireworks, what criteria do you use and do you have discretion to deny them based on conditions?
Mhm.
Because we don't have that discretion.
You don't, and let's see. We do receive applications. I'll reference my home jurisdiction of Depot Bay. The city of Depot Bay has put an ordinance in place to ban fireworks use in city limits. If I receive a permit to request sales in the city of Depot Bay, I just ban that based on that cooperative approach there. It doesn't make sense. It's very confusing for the public for me to allow sales, but the city not to allow the use in the city of Depot Bay. And so there are some things there. We unfortunately do not have the authority. Well, we have some, I should say, some regulation on or some discretion on approving those permits. And that's one of those examples. It all comes back to timing. And I just want to make sure that the group understands this, is that we receive these permits to sell in December and January. And if we try to align this with the fire debris ban, people have already invested dollars into selling these fireworks. And I received a phone call this morning from a local church group who is very concerned that this is their source of income to sponsor their church organization, and they're devastated. They've already made a significant investment, upwards of $40,000 to try and sell fireworks here, and we're already too late. Now there is that ordinance that the council has referred to, that it's based on weather, and that's the responsible thing to do, right? If we're under a red flag warning, we're just going to shut down fireworks. I think the public understands that. But again, it's all about timing. And if we need to have these conversations, if the county is going to lean towards banning fireworks or having some kind of declaration, it's kind of an all or none approach. And I know that's very difficult to hear. But having it a moving target is very confusing for the public. It's hard for law enforcement to support. It's hard for fire districts to coordinate the sale of the use, especially in the unincorporated areas. And so there's a number of factors here. The only thing that we can regulate and shut down, like council said, are those fireworks shows. And that's just based on fire weather as well.
So Chief Daniels, are you essentially saying that it's too late for this year?
Sort of. You do have your ordinance that says if there is fire weather or based on weather, you can still ban the use of. Now, if Lincoln County were to be under a red flag warning or a fire weather watch, that would be your trigger point to say, you know what? We know that people were allowed to buy them. You can't use them though.
And we are currently not under either of those things,
No,
correct?
correct.
Yeah. Okay. And we still have, a couple of weeks to go. So,
Yeah,
one of
things
those-
could change. I think I'll continue to work with this body as well as Commissioner Miller, just to let you know where we're gonna sit on or where we're at with weather or anticipated weather behavior, or any fire weather watches, and you can use that data to make a decision.
Okay,
And
Council
Jake.
Yule, did that answer your question? Council Yule?
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
Chair Jacobson, if I may add to that too,
Yes.
if it's something like that, I've heard, we have a red flag warning, you have to take action to, that would then rise on our priority level too, for us to go out and enforcement these too. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
that does make sense. Thank you. So, I guess in terms of what to do with this issue, I really do agree with what Sheriff Landers has talked about. It's not simply enforcement, but time to get the message out and people to be compliant,
Yeah.
which we're short on. We're short on time, I would say. So I think taking a different approach next year, and Commissioner Miller has agreed to do that, would be important. But additionally, I think if the board was going to take action to do this, I would recommend they do it today. Simply based on giving time, to get the message out. I think waiting till the 28th gives us absolutely zero time to do that. So I think if it was the board's will, I'm not sure it's my will, but if it was the board's will, I would suggest that maybe that happened today.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense to me too. And I would say all things considered, I do think we need to address this. We shouldn't, kind of kick the can down the road, so to speak, but at the same regard. I want it to be a robust policy discussion. And I think if we're going to make a new iteration, we should really work on that and make it for next year. As much as I think it's important, now, I think that's probably the best decision. And that we should address this very comprehensively going into 24.
I would
It's just-
agree with you. And I would also say that if we look at having a burn ban trigger the ban of a use, then we should probably send some information or have some discussions with the people that are typically going after permits to sell, and chat with them about that ahead of time so that they understand, that there's a new risk involved in them taking on that business model, that a burn ban would in effect, not allow people to use fireworks. But I think if they had the information ahead of time, then as Chief Daniels was talking about, the investment they make in selling that, they can be more informed on if that's still the fundraising avenue they want to pursue.
Okay. All right. Then let's not take it to next week. That's just my recommendation, but we really need to do it right. And we can't wait another year. So,
Agreed.
okay.
The only other thing I would add, and what I said and what everyone said, is obviously if we end up in a red flag warning or some other kind of weather event, then that changes some things. So I would just ask that maybe staff, maybe PIO LIP, monitor for us what is happening. And if I'm sure we would all hear, but just in case we didn't, if there is some type of weather event issued or a red flag warning issued, that we be aware and trigger 527 if we need to do that, or even call a special meeting to do that.
Thank
I
you.
would say that perhaps we can come up with some messaging, even though we don't have a firework ban per se, some type of messaging that we can use on our brand new reader boards that we purchased with ARP money and haul them out sometime around the 4th of July weekend, with some type of message we come up with, maybe working with Chief Daniels and Sheriff Landers on that.
All right. I concur.
Okay, great. Thank you. You on board, Commissioner Hall?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. All right, moving on then to item D, actually, but before we do that, it's been like an hour and a half, and I just want to check in to see if anyone needs a quick break before we move on to our last two discussion information items. Break needed?
3 to 5 minute recess?
Yeah, if people need that.
Yes.
3 to 5, let's do a 5-minute recess. So it is 11:30 on my phone here. So let's come back at 11:35 and we'll start with item D, which is Lincoln County Fair Update by Heather Tower. So 5-minute recess.
Another thing I wanted to. And they said. Here is the rational. Summer. Winter, because no one wants to have a girls going for theirs. I heard that much stuff. I can't put my. Go on the beach.
So, do you wanna, can we talk about this?
Yeah.
Can I get your number and just because I gotta. Yeah,
Let's-
well, let's talk about it, okay? Because I wanna be as informed as I can. So.
My name's Michael.
Good time to reach out to you.
Anytime, I got my phone on me all the time.
So I'll call you. Let's talk about it. Tell me everything that you know.
Yeah.
That you know.
In the fire, like. Doing the fire and stuff, I live in. I understand burning, make the last.
Yeah.
We, the fire down there and smolder it overnight.
Right.
You know, so it's not like, and it's different, and even in of course today, but. We said, you know, we can not sell and the brand groups that spin around and people have this.
We'll let Ed know what's going on.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll let you have
All right.
that. I got my coffee.
Okay.
So we're good for this year?
Yes.
All right.
All right.
Wait for your call.
Walk it up, you know. Screening, though. You know.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I agree. Thank you.
With what? Oh, that's a proposal to increase the room tax. And it would be, if we decide to do that, it would go to the voters because state law requires us. Cities can raise it on their own, but we have to refer it to voters and they have to approve. So fire tax? Oh, We don't have anything to do with that. It's the chiefs.
They got, you guys like the back on our property. So you guys have to do it, right?
Well, yeah, we're tax collector for all the special districts, the schools. Hmm?
All that.
Yeah, I mean, that's under state law that we're tax collector for all entities that are authorized to. Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, I have it's 11:36. It looks like we're still missing. Oh, there he is. Okay, perfect.
The line, there was a line.
Okay, we will come back into our meeting from recess. I see we're still missing Administrator Johnson, but I think that's all right for us to go ahead and get started here so we can get through the rest of our meeting agenda items. So next up is item D, 2023 Lincoln County Fair presented by Heather Tower, our fair manager.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, so I'm
yes.
apologize
Here
really
it comes. Yep,
quickly.
we're back in.
Okay, we are at state contest at the Albany Rifle and Pistol Club. So if you hear background noise, I'm gonna apologize. We're here through the end of the day and Daniel actually happens to be here with me. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Heather Tower. I'm the 4-H program coordinator for Lincoln County, and I also manage the Lincoln County Fair. And this is Daniel Helfrich, our current Fair Board Chair. I just wanted to hop on this meeting to talk about fair a little bit. It's coming up. It starts next Friday, June 30th, and we'll run through Sunday, July 2nd. Some things I want to highlight are we're going to have rodeo Friday and Saturday evening at 6 o'clock. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. We'll start rodeo opening ceremonies at 5 o'clock. Rodeo tickets are currently on sale online, ticketleap.com, or you can buy them at the gate. We're going to have live music all 3 days of fair with the Boondock Boys doing the closing act on both Friday and Saturday night. We're going to have bounce houses for the kids again. Both the exhibit hall and our outdoor vending space are full this year, which is super exciting. Our food vendor court is also full. We have several different food vendors coming in for the event. As always, fair is a free event. So if anyone wants to stop by, it's always a free event. So come on and check us out. I do want to say a big thank you to all of our sponsors and volunteers. It's definitely been a group effort to get this going for 2023. And I appreciate everybody that's put time and effort into planning the event. Just a quick kind of PSA, we do have open class intake that starts on Sunday, this Sunday, the 25th. They're going to start taking in non-perishables on Sunday, and then perishable items will come in on Wednesday. As a reminder to the Board of Commissioners, you guys do have ribbons that you award, so please stop by on Thursday after 3 o'clock, after 2:30, and you can pick a youth item and an adult item to award ribbons to. I think that's all I have. Daniel's going to talk a little bit about opening ceremonies and things that he has requested from the board.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners, staff. We are going to do an opening ceremony just like we did last year for the fair. That will start at 10 o'clock at the main stage. Very similar to what we did last year. So if a commissioner would like to do opening remarks, that would be great. As soon as the opening ceremony is over, we are going to go to the north end of the 4-H arena or 4-H barn and do a ribbon cutting to commemorate the opening of that barn. So that'll happen back to back. And then at 5 o'clock, both the 30th and the 1st will be the opening ceremony for the rodeos. It would be great if we could get the commissioners there, Administrator Johnson as well. We can recognize everybody for putting on the rodeo and the fair. The other thing that's big this year is the local Marine Corps League has given us boxes for Toys for Tots. So we will be doing a Toys for Tots drive throughout the entire fair. I think that's all I have.
Does anybody have any questions for us?
Thank you, both of you, to presenting and putting on a great fair for us this year. Commissioner Holler Miller, questions?
No questions. Looking forward to the event.
Yeah, me too. And thanks for all your work on this. Ken, could you screen share the schedule again off their website?
Oh, yes, that would be fabulous. Thank you.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can see the schedule of events there. Awesome. I'm excited.
One other thing I would say, I was actually going to ask you, Heather, when we needed to come down and pick out open class exhibits to put commissioners' rivers on, which was something we started, I think last year. I think last year was our first year doing that. I don't know if that made it to our calendar or not, so I would ask staff in the room or maybe PIO Lip or Kathleen Kelly there to maybe get into our calendars after this meeting and just find a time on Thursday after 3 for all of us to go down. We don't all need to be there at the 3 same time. Probably better actually if we're not, just to go down and pick out the open class exhibit to put our commissioner ribbon on.
And it's a quick process, and you can even do it before we open at 10 o'clock on Friday.
Okay.
So either early Friday morning or in the afternoon on Thursday. And honestly, I'll be there at 7 a.m. on Friday, or I'll probably be pretty late after 8 o'clock on Thursday. So whatever fits best into your schedule, just swing on by.
Great, thank you. All right, any other questions from commissioners or staff?
I don't think so. I just hope our community takes advantage of the event and checks it out.
Yeah, me too. All right,
Awesome.
thank you. Thank you for presenting to us today and good luck at state shooting sports.
Thank you. It's our junior day, which is the easiest day. So they're out there having a great time.
Great, thank you, Heather. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to our last discussion and information item. Item E, first reading of ordinance 531 relating to taxes, creating new provisions, amending LCC 5.010 and 5.012 and referring the ordinance to the voters for approval, presented by County Council Kristen Yule and County Park Supervisor Kelly Perry.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioners, would you like the ordinance read by title only, or would you like?
Title only.
Title only is okay with me.
Yeah,
Okay.
title only is fine with me as well.
So this is ordinance 531 relating to taxes, creating new provisions, amending LCC 5.010 and 5.012, and referring the ordinance to the voters for approval. So commissioners, this is the transient room tax provision in Chapter 5 of the Lincoln County Code. The last increase occurred in 2016 when it was raised from 9 to 10%. That was approved by voters. Currently, the cities of Newport and Lincoln City both have their TRT at 12%. So the county is a little behind. And so this would, this is the first reading of ordinance 531. If you go through what's provided in the packet and the sections amended, you can see in section 1 are amended from 10 to 12%. If you go to the 2% increase, so this is going to be placed in a separate account, which is traditional how we do these increases. It's a separate account placed by our treasurer, Jane Welch, and then it will be accounted for in the following scenario. So 30% would be dispersed for the county general fund, 70% would be dispersed in Lincoln County Parks, and this would go for ongoing operating support, improvements for recreation, preservation, and enhancement for Lincoln County Parks. If you were to approve this, an election would be held on Tuesday, November 7th, 2023, in which the voters would have the decision. Increase or not. I'd like Ms. Perry to speak about what park improvements would be made with these monies.
Could I just interject something briefly to add further context to this? People may be wondering about the context. And I believe it was 2007, the state legislature passed a law saying that any room tax increases from that point forward had to be allocated 70% to visitor promotion or visitor facilities, and allowing us to reserve up to 30% for general fund operations. So this is what we're going to consider for use of the 70% if the voters approve. And we make the referral and the voters approve.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Happy Wednesday, everyone.
Happy Wednesday.
Hi, my name is Kelly Perry. I'm with Parks. And I wanted to first thank Tim Johnson for suggesting this a few months ago and having this idea of way for parks to secure a more sustainable funding source. Our parks are popular, but we have not had the resources for basic upkeep and maintenance. Trails have been neglected, overgrown, facility roofs are leaking, septic systems are failing, boat ramps are degrading. Our riverbanks and our natural resources need to be managed and preserved. And currently, our parks are subsidized by local taxpayers for the enjoyment of all. If this goes on the ballot, this would be a transient room tax. So this tax increase would have tourists contribute their fair share to our parks. Does anyone have any questions?
Well, I don't think I have any questions. I'm just very excited about the potential for outdoor recreation and for enhancing this asset. I think it's a good move.
Madam
I don't-
Chair, I'll say, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry if I'm jumping a fast forward there, guys.
I'm excited about this, having watched the evolution of our park system for a long time. It's kind of been developed on the cheap, thanks to former state funding streams that provided for construction, but no support for ongoing maintenance. And I believe Director Perry and her predecessors have done the very best on maintenance that they could within very limited resources, but this will allow us to, I think, really, essentially, wouldn't it just round figures double your yearly operating budget?
We're still going over those figures,
Mhm.
but right now we're from the general fund.
Mhm.
I'm hoping that we can keep that fund for a few years as this fund grows and then this can be used to augment our operations, but also.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Nope.
Oh, pardon me, Madam Chair, go ahead.
No questions for me. Go ahead, Commissioner Miller.
Yeah, I guess I'm just enthusiastic about it, and I, would want us to be mindful of that ADA accessibility component too, when we're, and I know that's part of Ms. Perry's lens anyways, but with our aging population, and I was at an ADA accessibility conference where the state was doing an inventory, and they had a lot they needed to look at, but just means that getting out, the more that can do it, it's good for your health, and certainly an alternative to where you want to stay when you come to the Oregon coast. Instead of a hotel or a short-term rental, maybe you can get outside. So if to that end, we improve those opportunities, I think it's going to be wonderful.
Yeah, I always advocate for getting out in nature.
Yeah. That's all.
Ms. What are our next steps with this? Does this need to come back in 2 weeks?
Yes, it would come back for a second reading on July 5th.
Okay, do we have a consensus with that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Yule and Ms. Perry. All right, reports. Any reports need to be presented by commissioners? Commissioner Hall, do you have anything to report?
Not today.
Okay, Commissioner Miller.
Just would report that I was in Lincoln City last night, tapped area, St. Clair, North Lincoln Fire Station for community wildfire presentations. Those are largely over now, but you can catch one more in Eddyville, I think on the 26th. Information and is available on the emergency management section of the county's website. But one thing I do just want to highlight is, and Commissioner Jacobson, you've mentioned this before too, in regard to replacing lost structures from Echo Mountain, that we really look at those insurance policies because keeping that up to date and making sure the value assessments are in lockstep, if you will, with your policy is going to be a good thing, especially if anything happens. So good information. I appreciated being there and seeing people turn out and encourage the community to look at that information and be prepared as the dry season continues. So
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Miller, for the reminder on looking at your insurance. I will just share my whole story on that and say this is like one of my few soapboxes I get on, so bear with me.
Yeah.
But after starting to work with survivors of the Echo Mountain fire, a lot of people were uninsured or underinsured and didn't necessarily know that they were underinsured. I have to say, at first, when hearing this over and over again, I kind of thought, how would you be? I mean, how would you not be diligent enough to sort of be underinsured, right? Okay. So after hearing this many, many times, I thought, I should probably check my own stuff. I live in Newport. I have 4 kids. I have an older ranch house, but still looked at my policy and found out that if I had a total loss, if I lost everything, whole house burned to the ground, everything was gone. At that time, and this was about 2 years ago that I checked, my total replacement cost was $225,000. Which was not, sounds like a lot, but the building materials at the time when I checked, which was in, 2021 or so, there was no way you could actually buy the materials and build my house back for that same amount. So case in point, you can be underinsured, know it. And so I would really encourage everyone to go check their insurance. I also realized that my fishing boat was not insured, paid for cash, didn't have insurance, would cost a lot to replace, was not part of my homeowner's insurance. So really, really encourage everybody to go look at that. You can be underinsured and not know that. We had an addition on our home. And while the addition to the home was covered, there was not record of how many bedrooms. Bedrooms are worth more when it comes to insurance and total replacement. So again, just everybody go check. I think a lot of you will find you're probably underinsured and don't know it. There's my soap.
Yeah, no, thank you for that.
Anything else to report, Commissioner Miller?
Nothing more at this time. Thank you.
Okay, and nothing else from me under reports. So now moving into public comment. I do know we had a lot coming in on Smart Sheets this week. Do we have any public comment, virtual public comment? So if you're online with me, go ahead and raise your virtual hand and our PIO will fish you out.
There's no one, Chair.
No one, just me. Okay, so moving on to in-person public comment. Do we have anyone that wants to provide public comment? Today? We do? Okay. So you can step forward, provide your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes. So we'll ask maybe Commissioner Hall or Commissioner.
3 minutes now? We're going to get that 3 minutes?
Yep.
Okay, so I am Cynthia George. I, of course, have been looking into the Olala Lake issue, the Olala, golf course. And in all of this, I found out we are now pushed into a proposed new district. So I just got off the phone with Toledo, and what I'm trying to find out is when there was an ordinance for this special fire district, that what I understand is an overlay of the pool district. I'm in the unincorporated area of Lake County. And from what I understand, there's only certain homes that are falling under this new taxing district. So I'd really like to get clarification on what this new East County Fire Taxing District is. It was supposedly adopted in 2018. Everybody keeps telling me that you guys have nothing to do with it, but you collect the tax. And it had to have been put through in ordinance, right? Which is about the same thing that you're doing with the room tax right now, right? Is up in the changing the tax laws with an ordinance, correct? That's what you guys are just proposing. And so this should have also been voted on, I would think. So I'm here to find out for the people exactly what is going on. When you talk about fire concerns, they say that it's not fault, the forest lands or they're automatically prohibited. Well, we've got properties in this county that are putting 2 acres back into forest lands and tax exempting it. So does that mean that that 2 acres is under those bans because they're taxed as a forestry? I didn't know RR5s could go under a tax deferral, a forest deferral, and those are a lot of homes in the Lincoln County area. So that's something for your fire ban, you're saying? Because somehow there get special considerations when it comes to their taxes, when you take an $800,000 home and then you break off 2 acres and then you put it back in tax deferral and you're only taxed on a $2,400 land tax. And who's paying for their fire if forest lands aren't taxed? Or they're not, you know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of real weird things happening, and we'll find out more, but I would like, and that's what I'm here for, is requesting copies of any of the procedures that went through to adopt this 2018 ordinance through Lincoln County. Because and this new taxing district that I guess is out of Toledo, but not out of Toledo, but collected by you guys, but not by you guys, right?
Ringing any bells for?
So,
So you, Department of Revenue creates taxing districts. And so have you contacted the Department of Revenue?
you collect the taxes, do you not? Does
That
the
has nothing to
taxes
do
not
with
come
creation of
through-
the district.
Shouldn't, as you're.
You're asking
adopting-
about the creation of the district, though. The
If-
creation of the district is approved by
But-
Department of Revenue.
But just like you're changing your tax code and your ordinance right here, right
That's
now.
within a.
Okay,
The fire districts are not.
okay, okay. So everybody has no fingers in how these new taxing districts have happened.
So Department of Revenue.
Okay, all righty. Well, we'll find out and bring it back next week. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there any other people in person to provide public comment?
Madam Chair, it looks like no.
No, Chair.
I do have one thing, Madam Chair, in regard to written public input.
Sure.
I was having a conversation yesterday with Ed Forsyth of New Seasons Ministries. And I didn't tell him about the 12 p.m. cutoff. He gave us some very well constructed written comment, and I just wanted to enter that into the record, and just wanted you to know. So I'll
Okay.
add that to our written public input, which was received after 12.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Miller. All right, so our next meeting is actually going to be Wednesday, June 28th, 2023 at 10 a.m. So meeting is adjourned.